Well, a warm welcome from European Hydrogen Week, organised by Hydrogen Europe. My name is Keith Maynard from Hydrogen Standard, and we're here at the booth of Quest One with the CEO, Mr. Robin von Plettenberg. Robin, can you explain, what are you exactly doing at Quest One? What is the way that you're doing your bit?
So when you look at the fight against climate change, a very important element will be green hydrogen, because there's a number of sectors that you can only decarbonize with green hydrogen. And these are 10 to 20% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. And if you want to live in a net zero world, which we need, then you have to have big amounts of green hydrogen. And what we are doing is we are producing the equipment to generate this green hydrogen. So electrolysers are pieces of equipment that use green electricity to split water into hydrogen and oxygen. And this hydrogen, again, is completely decarbonized. There's no carbon involved. And that's an energy carrier that can be used in multiple applications.
Okay, so you're creating the equipment that's then being sold to other companies in order to create that green hydrogen. When you call it green hydrogen, is the hydrogen that you're producing without any? There's no downsides at all. Or, is it completely carbon positive in that sense?
Yeah, it's completely without carbon. There's no carbon involved. We are taking green electricity from wind farms, from solar plants, from hydropower, and that electricity is then used in the electrolyzer to generate the hydrogen.
And how far along are you in your journey? Because I'm guessing, obviously, from what we were talking about before, you said that as a company you've been around for over 27 years? It's quite a long time. I was really surprised to hear you say that.
Yes, exactly. So we have been founded in 1997. We've always been focused on electrolysis, and in particular on PEM electrolysis. That's proton exchange membrane. That's one of the very important technologies for electrolysis. And we've always been focused on that, and that's how we know the technology very well. So we're very well acquainted, and we control the technology very well.
And you work currently in 3 different locations, 3 different across 3 different countries as well. Is that correct? Could you tell us more about that?
Yes, that's correct. So we have originally or historically we had 2 sites in Germany. On the one hand side, in Hamburg, we have everything that is related to the stack. The stack, you can look at it as if it's like the engine of a car. That's where actually the electricity is splitting the water into hydrogen and oxygen. So this core component is being developed and produced in Hamburg. And we've just opened a huge Giga Hub, as we call it, a huge production facility, testing facility, but also a platform for exchange on hydrogen, education, customers, and so on and so forth. And that Giga Hub has been just opened 6 weeks ago and is really one of the world-leading sites for this of this type. Then we have Augsburg, where we are doing everything that is around the stack, so to make sure that we have a proper DC connection, that we have the water, that it's clean and deionized, and we have both again R&D and production at Augsburg, because we want to have these always very close together in order to optimize production and the product together. And then finally, we've just opened a location in Houston in the US, where we are now also addressing the market. And there we are also building a local supply chain together with a partner who would do all the balance of plant. So we would be sending the stacks from Germany, and then we would build the balance of plant in the US to have a strong local organization there.
So you talk about this new Giga Hub that you've launched 6 weeks ago in Hamburg. What is that going to enable you to do now moving forward that you couldn't do before? What advantages is it giving you? How much closer is it getting you to your quest for that 1%?
So it's a big step for us. We are moving from a manual production assembly of the stacks to a fully automated stack production. We basically accelerate the production process. from 4.5 hours to less than 1 hour. We have a huge increase in capacity. So when this is fully operational, we are talking about more than 5 gigawatts of electrolysis power. And this is really a huge step for us into the future and in the direction of our 1% vision.
Yeah, it sounds like a real game changer. Absolutely, from 4.5 hours to 1 hour is very, very impressive. And I'm guessing, therefore, that there is a real demand for what you produce, for your equipment out there. So is this going to enable you to, in a sense, meet that demand and expand that desire to go to the 1%? What's it now going to enable you to provide?
So if we look at the market, it has been growing much slower than we expected 2 to 3 years ago. And this is because it's a very complex undertaking to get a complete new energy system in place, where you need the electricity, the green electricity, you need the electrolyzers, but you also need the infrastructure to transport and store the hydrogen, so pipelines or ports or plants, and then you also need the offtake. You need to do something with the hydrogen, and all these elements have to have a positive business case and have to be there at the same time. And these are huge infrastructure projects where you need regulation, you need funding, public funding, subsidies, you need financing, and all that at the same time, and this just takes time. And I'm confident that we are now seeing the big take up, that we will still have it in front of us. The fundamentals are still unchanged. You still need these huge amounts of green hydrogen, and it's really more of a question of timing and not so much of the future volume of required hydrogen. So there's a good business case for us, and I think also as Europe we have a good opportunity to position ourselves in this very important future industry.
Now, you mentioned before about the fact that obviously it's beginning to pick back up. There's more demand growing, and there's that growth. There's a tremendously exciting future ahead. You've speeded up your production times from 4.5 to 1 hour, which is very impressive. And I believe that with that 27-year-old history that you have, there's also a lot of connections you have to other companies, because I suppose what I'm driving at is, what is it, if people are watching and thinking, I need that equipment, what sets you apart from other people that produce this equipment in the industry? What is your unique selling point, that you want to let people know about?
So, I mean, for us, it's really the whole setup, I think, is a big advantage for us, because when it comes to scaling up this electrolyzer business, you have to know the technology. Okay, we're around for 27 years. Then you also have to understand heavy industry, like the big chemical companies, the fertilizer companies, the oil and gas companies, the big energy companies. And our mother, we're 100% daughter of MAN Energy Solutions, who are serving this industry for centuries, actually. And when it comes to then executing projects that are worth a couple of hundreds of millions of euros, you need this credibility with these type of customers. You need to be able to execute such projects. MAN also has an EPC arm, so they can also provide the whole engineering and procurement and construction around the electrolyzer. And that helps us a lot to have this credibility in this industry and to be able to execute on these projects. And then when it comes to our own operations, we must not think in heavy industry terms, because in heavy industry you always build customized solutions, batches of one for big plants. But we have to scale up the volume in a different way. We have to think large series. And large series production and supply chain management, co-development with suppliers, there the automotive industry is really by far leading. And it happens that the mother of MAN Energy Solutions is Volkswagen, one of the biggest automotive OEMs in the world, and that knowledge we are using also when we are setting up this Giga Hub, for example, or our production in Augsburg. And this is a huge advantage that we combine this knowledge together.
So what you're saying essentially is that there's hundreds of years of know-how and expertise behind Quest One in getting people that equipment that really is going to do exactly what they want in a scalable way.
Yes, that's correct. And that also enables us that we are already very established as a player for containerized electrolyzers. So containerized electrolyzers are smaller. They're 1 megawatt, but they're basically plug and play, where you can basically just connect them to the grid and you get high quality hydrogen out. And there we are a leading manufacturer already in the world, and we have a lot of our stacks already deployed in the field, and we are using the same stacks and this experience to plug them into our bigger modules that we are right now offering, that are 10 megawatts each, and these modules can then be combined to big plants of 20, 50, 100, 200, 300 megawatts. And so we are now entering into this like very large plant business, but we are building on the experience that we have, and so we have a very robust case here for our equipment, and this reliability is a huge advantage for our customers.
Robin, thank you very much for sharing all of that with us today. And there we go, a wonderful opportunity to find out more about Quest One, hundreds of years of expertise within this company with their desire to meet that 1% target, to be more environmentally friendly, to be more mindful, and to produce something that is scalable and that is something that's going to be reliable for you if you are considering using their equipment moving forward. Thank you very much, Robin. From European Hydrogen Week, we'll speak again very soon.